What's up, guys? Today's video, I wanted to talk about 2023, looking back, reviewing the portfolio, seeing what worked, what didn't work, and then talking about 2024 and how I'm coming up with an investing plan and what I think the market may do. Starting off with 2023, if we're looking at the performance of the public portfolio, that's the stocks that I'm buying for the long term in Fidelity, had a pretty good year. Up 37% for last year. S&P 500 around 26%, so beating the S&P 500 on the year. A big part of that is having a higher percentage of our portfolio in some of the Magnificent Seven stocks, which have been absolutely crushing it in 2023. Definitely a bounce back year after 2022 with their underperformance. You have names like NVIDIA up over 200%, Meta up 194%, which is just insane to think about, just because Meta at one point was trading around $90 per share and now it's of $300, and that is a massive company. So these large cap companies moving 200% in a year is just crazy to think about. But yeah, going back to the portfolio, so the Mag 7 were definitely winners. I also had winners in companies like Intuit, Adobe, anything that had some AI sprinklings on there did pretty well. My Hack ETF, which is focused on cybersecurity, did well. Domino's, a couple new positions in 2023. So Portillo's is a new one. Raytheon is a new one. Rockwell is a new one. I was trimming my semiconductors back in July, August. Then towards the end of the year, added to real estate and bonds when rates were closer to 5% on the 10-year, and that turned out to be pretty good. Real estate has rallied pretty hard for the past couple months. Bonds have picked up a little bit, and I'll talk about in 2024 kind of my thoughts around bonds. But yeah, back to the portfolio. If we look at the structure of the portfolio right now, it's still pretty heavily weighted towards larger cap companies or mega cap. If you kind of combine the two here, it's around 75% of the portfolio. Bonds around 7%. And then cash, which is kind of a mixture of cash. And then I did buy a put against the portfolio. So the put option is more of protection for the short term through Q1 of 2024, which I'll talk about. But yeah, so right now the portfolio all time is up around 51%. And definitely happy with the performance. An exciting piece of information is that the dividends was over $1,000 this year for the portfolio for the first time. So that's definitely a milestone. December, big month, $188. I think that's because we had a pretty big payout from VNQ. So that's the real estate ETF there. That's pushing us over the edge of that $1,000 marker. And then you see here kind of the industries and sectors that across. If you look at kind of the sector breakdown, you'll see that currently technology is around 36% of the portfolio, and then industrials, healthcare, financials, consumer cyclical, all over 6%. So these are kind of the heavier sectors that I'm in. Don't really touch energy. I got out of energy in, it was either very end of 2022 or beginning of 2023, which ended up working out pretty well with oil prices coming way down after all the tension around the war and the supply issues kind of figured themselves out. So a bit of equilibrium in the energy markets there. Yeah, that's kind of the setup in 2023. Now looking at 2024, probably what you guys want to hear about, future predictions, a couple things. So I did just recently sell Apple. So talking about the Magnificent Seven and how well they performed in 2023. 2024, I don't think they'll perform as good just because their valuations have ballooned back to growth expectations. At the beginning of 2023, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, you throw a dart at any of them, and the valuations look decent. Just because people were pretty bearish. But now the valuations have been bid up a bit. So speaking of Apple, it's one of those companies where it's already massive, $3 trillion market cap. So in order to grow or move the needle, you're going to have some massive products or massive software, something that's going to drive revenue growth. I know their services is growing in terms of revenue, but a lot of their products and even iPhone sales are either very low growth or actually declining. And if you look at their last earnings report, growth year over year is down 3%. And their innovation in terms of products that they're releasing has been way down over the past few years compared to, call it the past 20 years. So Apple is one of the stocks where I ended up deciding to trim that out of the portfolio. And if we look at the S&P 500, kind of where it's at, I think going into the end of 2023, it was on a bit of a heater. I mean, the weekly RSI got above 70, and that was back to me buying that put option against the S&P 500. A little insurance against the portfolio, only 1% of the portfolio in the put value. So, I wouldn't be surprised for the market to pull back a little bit just because of how fast it ran between November and December with the Fed talking about cutting rates. And let's talk about that. So the Fed came out in December and basically said, we're pretty much done with raising rates, and they're thinking about cutting rates moving forward. So at some point in 2024, federal fund rates may come down, which if we look at kind of what the bond market was doing and interest rates for the 10-year, 20-year, October it was closer to 5%, and now it's closer to 4%. So the market definitely believes that the Fed is going to come out and cut those rates. So a couple things related to that. So with rates coming down, I think bonds will do pretty well in 2024. I also think small cap stocks may outperform in 2024. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm just kind of talking things out. So the S&P 500, the forward PE right now is close to 21. Back in 2022, around October, I remember making a video talking about the forward PE was around 15, and it was a decent time to buy for the long term. Definitely excited to be buying the S&P 500 or the stock market when forward PE is 15. Now it's at 20, 21. I'm definitely less excited. I think around 20 is kind of that level of, well, you kind of just hold. And, if earnings are growing, you may get 0 to 10% in returns for the S&P 500, probably closer to 8 to 10%. If it gets towards like 25, that's where I start to think it's a little frothy. But at 20, 21, I'm not overly excited, but I'm not overly bearish, which brings me to crypto and kind of what I think is going to happen there. Trying to cover all the asset classes. So stocks, I think, will, be up probably around 5 to 8%, call it. So I think small green year, kind of continuing the backs of 2023. I think we'll see some volatility, some 10% dips here and there. Again, first quarter, we may see a pullback just because of how fast we ran up. But Bitcoin, I think with the rates getting lowered, that helps Bitcoin. A little bit more speculation comes in the market. Pair that with Bitcoin's halving that's coming up in April of 2024. In the past, you have a halving, and then Bitcoin usually will run after that. So I am bullish on Bitcoin. We look at the portfolio, my crypto portfolio. Here's kind of the breakout. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Chainlink are the big ones. Have a couple altcoins, but nothing too big. I think Bitcoin, either end of 2024 or beginning of 2025, breaks its previous all-time high. So that's kind of my thoughts around Bitcoin and crypto in general. It's not always correlated to the stock market, but I think if the stock market is going higher, that definitely makes it easier for crypto to go higher as well. So yeah, 2024, that's kind of my thoughts. Definitely in the comments below, let me know what you guys think. Also, if you haven't checked out MainStreetWolf.com, there's a couple free courses that I provide for anyone that wants to sign up. Investing 101, Getting Started is a great course for beginners. I also have an Investing 101 that's a little bit more advanced, a little bit more in detail related to stocks. But again, go to MainStreetWolf.com, check it out, guys. If you enjoy my YouTube videos or whatever platform you watch me on, definitely check it out. Thanks again, guys, for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day in 2024.